so delighted that you've joined us for today's program about the exciting U of C Medicine project. Before I introduce today's presenters, I'd like to say a few words. The Chicago Building Congress uniquely represents the entire construction industry, working to unify our wonderfully diverse membership by creating networking opportunities like this to build authentic relationships. Since 1939, CBC remains unique as the only vertically integrated trade association serving the Chicago area. We are delighted at the variety of events we offer, and we will go through a few of those right now with what we have coming up. Our Future Leaders Committee lunch panel on professional development on April 2nd is coming up. We have our April 18th Top Golf Collaborative event with BCOE, the Black Contractors, Owners, and Executives Organization. On May 9th, our annual Merit Awards celebrating the best Chicagoland design and construction will be held again this year at Morgan Manufacturing. And on May 16th, the newly formed CBC Women's Special Interest Group will be hosting their first networking event. Stay tuned for more details coming soon. Today, our ongoing luncheon series continues with our discussion on UChicago Medicine's new cancer care and research pavilion. We are excited for you to meet our presenters. First, Marco Capicchione, hopefully close, is the Vice President for Facilities and Support Services at UChicago Medicine, Biological Sciences Division. In his prior role at UChicago, he served as the Vice President of Facilities Planning, Design, and Construction. He was also the Vice President of Facility, Real Estate, and Support Services for the Henry Ford Health System in the Detroit area. Also on the panel is Tom Nelson. Tom currently serves as Construction Executive and Healthcare Director for Turner Construction's Chicago office. Tom manages the business unit's healthcare group, which includes business development and construction operations over a wide range of project sizes. As Chicago's healthcare director for Turner, Tom serves as the group's overall lead for managing client relationships and providing operational excellence. Finally, our last presenter for today's events, Todd Eichen, is the Senior Healthcare Architect and Vice President at Canton Design. He serves as a client leader and company officer in their Chicago office. Todd has practiced healthcare architecture for many years, for 37 years, concentrating on larger projects for many of the leading institutions in the Chicago area, as well as nationally. Todd is serving as project director on the UChicago Medicine Cancer Pavilion project. We could not bring these innovative programs to our members and others without the generous support of our outstanding sponsors. I'd like to thank our annual sponsors as well as the sponsors for this event. You'll see our annual sponsors on the signage throughout the room. There are many, and to each of you, we express our gratitude. We are also grateful for our event sponsors today: Platinum level sponsor Affiliated Engineers and refreshment sponsor David Mason & Associates. Thank you. So on behalf of the Chicago Building Congress, I'd like to thank our presenters. Thank you all again for attending. And without further ado, I'd like to have our presenters come up and introduce themselves, and we'll get started with the program.
Good? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you all for coming this afternoon. I really appreciate that. We appreciate being invited to such a great group to discuss our project. Many times we're giving presentations to folks about the building and they don't really understand all that goes into the construction of a building. So it's very gratifying to be in front of an audience of our colleagues who truly understand the construction industry. I want to thank Todd and Tom, who have been our partners on this project, and for their help. I think you can go on to that slide. Yes, great. You can go on to the next slide, too. Thank you. So the project, as you know, this is a very specific and special project for us. At the University of Chicago Medicine, we pride ourselves on bringing academics, research, and clinical excellence to our patients. And this project is really designed to make sure that all three of those elements are uniquely focused on our patients and their families to make sure that they receive the best care possible. We think this is really what makes University of Chicago Medicine very different. And one of the things about this project as well, I think it's a great privilege when you can build a hospital because of the benefits that it has to everyone beyond that. But I think building a cancer hospital for us it's very special, because if you've ever heard that C word, and can I ask how many people have had people in their family affected by cancer here? Yeah, see, when they hear that C word, it changes their entire lives, right? And those around them. And we want this to be a building that really provides them with all of the resources to feel and to do their best and to achieve their greatest outcomes. So without any ado, I'm going to turn it over to Todd, who's going to go on.
I'll let you.
What's that?
You want to do this one? Go ahead. This is the why.
Oh, yeah, the cancer rate's the why. I'm sorry. Yeah, why this project and why now? As you can see from the statistics up here, cancer is going to be one of those very debilitating diseases that's going to, I guess, make it more difficult as we continue to, as a population, to actually enjoy getting older and enjoying more time in our retirement years. But it's also very special to the south side of Chicago, who are our neighbors, because for them, this is a disease that has taken hold of their population and is affecting them in greater ways than it is in the other parts of Chicago and the country. So we feel it a special duty to really deliver on this project for them because of those needs.
Just to highlight some of our project team, many who actually are in the audience with us today. It's a large team for a large project, as you would imagine. I think of note really is that it's a local team for the most part, from all the design disciplines. Just have a few sort of niche sub-consultants maybe that are from out of town, but I think it's great that we have a very local team doing this project. And I think for all of us, we echo what Marco said about this being a very special project to everybody on this team. Special shout out to AEI and DMA, who are sponsoring today and the event, so who are part of this, an integral part of this team. Just a few of the facts and figures around the project you can see on the screen here. Various entities, whether it's the Chicago Building Department or the Zoning Department, calculate square footage different ways, as many of you know. But in round numbers, this is our 575,000 square foot, 8-story plus basement cancer pavilion. It's a mix of inpatient and outpatient care. 80 new beds added to the campus through the project. Outpatient clinics for the various cancer specialties are included. Infusion, therapy, imaging is part of the project. Future radiation oncology is provided for. We have a project site right on the UCM campus. We'll show a slide here in a minute that better shows where that is. But right along 57th Street, just to the north of the Center for Care and Discovery, for those of you who might be more familiar with the campus. So we're bounded by Maryland Avenue and Drexel Avenue on our east and west sides. And lastly, just LEED Gold is our aspiration for the project. So we're actively in pursuit of that as the project moves forward. This is the site plan. North is up on this slide. Telling me that I wasn't loud enough. So north is up on this slide. This is just you can see that we pretty much fill the project site. It's about 1.75 acres of vacant land there. It is vacant. Before the project, there was a series of apartment buildings and whatnot that were previously there. But we've, like I said, at least on 3 sides, we're pretty much to the property line, and then on the Drexel side, which is the main drop-off for the building, we've got a little bit of a setback there. Some of the big ideas behind the project. We went through, and we'll show a couple slides to this in a minute, what we called a prototyping phase first, before we ever got to the actual schematic design phase of the project. And prototyping is based on trying to figure out what the building wants to be, what the building's DNA should be. UCM is a large academic medical center with lots of constituents, lots of researchers, faculty, staff. So it needs to accommodate a lot of things and a lot of functions. So we went through this prototyping phase first before we actually designed the building. And like I said, tried to kind of figure out, what should this facility be? Flexibility was one of the things that obviously came out of that. We'll show a couple of slides again that illustrate how we tried to be as flexible of a building as possible to accommodate both the multitude of current initial uses and what the future might hold for this building. So I'm sure you're all familiar that we all talk about what's going to be in 10 years, what should this building be in 20 years, and what can we do to plan for that moving forward. So we've tried, we've done our best. I think we've done a lot of good things, and we'll illustrate a couple here in a minute. Research integrated into the project. So again, being an academic medical center, which is a highly regarded research institution, that came into play. So we're not just a community hospital-based cancer center. There's a lot of other things that have to be considered when one is part of a academic research institution. So that played heavily into the design of the building as well, the programming and design. And then the last one, built for growth. We have both horizontal expansion through the use of shell space and vertical expansion for future growth designed into the project at this point. So this is going back to what I said earlier about prototyping. It's a little bit of a unique activity to come up with, sort of the heart of the project. What does this project want to do? What does it want to be? Coming out of that phase were several sort of parameters that the owner and design team, construction team, were all challenged to abide by, if we, as best we could. These are our guideposts, as we progressed through the programming and design of the project. And I think we've done a pretty good job of executing on these now that we're into the stage where we're at. As we go through that prototyping phase, it does eventually go from being agnostic of any site, any certain place, to something that has to be put on a particular site, of course, because we're doing a building, and that was the goal. So, but what we came down to was this idea of, we called them petals of the building, which are of a size and nature that they can accommodate various uses, whether that's an inpatient floor, an outpatient floor, a potential laboratory or research use, dry research, just about anything. So there were a lot of parameters that we had to think about as we progressed through the design. As you can see, this slide speaks to that idea of what is the future going to hold. None of us really know. I was looking at these slides this morning, and I saw that like the third one over says something about, in the 50 years, it says something about AI, and I was thinking, well, that's probably more like the 5-year, not the 50. Since we put this slide together probably a year and a half ago, all we've heard about is AI, right? The design evolved. Like I said, it has to go from being this idea to a building, right? So we pushed, we pulled, like you normally would with any project. The curves that you see in the design today are really an outgrowth of how many beds, how many inpatient beds need to be on a single floor. If we were to draw a rectangle on the site and try to accommodate all those beds, we'd run out of exterior facade length for the windows. So the somewhat organic form is actually just an output of the functional need that we had to design to. And you can see in the bottom middle with the vertical expansion, the building is structured for an additional 4 floors of vertical expansion in the future. So this is the sort of the end result, what we've been calling our flexible incubator of a project. Again, that incubator is so it can foster all the interactions that are part of this project between the patients, the staff, the research, the faculty that are going to make this building their home. 3 pods. The petals turned into pods as we progressed. They are all in the 16 to 17,000 square foot range on a floor. Just the pod itself, not counting the building core that's in the middle. This is how the building stacks vertically. The basement is primarily support space, and then future radiation oncology has been accounted for, mostly in the foundation systems of the building at this point, to include vaults later. First floor is comprised of a lot of public space. Our main vehicular drop-off is on level 1, and then some outpatient clinic space and imaging space on level 1. Level 2 is also an extension of the main public space. One of the unique features of the building that was dictated by the site is that we have really 2 main entries, because our parking is in the existing parking garage to the east, and the main entrance on level 1 for vehicular drop-off wanted to be on Drexel Avenue on our west. So we had to figure out how to make that sort of cross-connection between all those public entries. We'll see that in some plans in a sec. First floor plan, as I said, you can see to the right there on the drawing where we had the main entry and vehicular drop-off along Drexel, the large public space that sort of snakes around the building on the south and the east sides, connecting some of the various functions, whether they're public or the clinic. You also see a wellness center, and at the bottom right there, bottom left, the Innovation Center. Some of those spaces are directly influenced by all the community input that has gone into this project. We have some better examples of that later in the slide deck, but there was a lot of input from various community groups, patient panels, so there are direct results of that input reflected in the design of the building today. Just a couple of images from the first floor. This is our vehicular drop-off on Drexel Avenue. It's got a very hospitality-like feel. If you notice there, that's the intention. 2-story public lobby space, befitting a project of this, caliber and size. Again, connecting that second floor entry to our first floor. The Innovation Center is a very flexible space on level 1. It's going to be divided from the lobby with a movable glass panel system so that we can open up for larger events. We can close it off for a multitude of events, whether that's meetings, TED Talks, research exhibitions, what have you, patient-focused exhibitions, or many, many uses have been contemplated for that space. As we move to the second floor, to the left there, you can see a bridge to parking. So we had to, again, create 2 entries to this building. So there are basically 2 main reception points that came into play. The bulk of the second floor is outpatient clinic with various multidisciplinary clinics serving the patients on that floor. Again, coming across the bridge, you have to encounter a reception desk, a main reception point, just like you will downstairs on level 1. Moving up to the 3rd floor, this is a totally outpatient floor with more clinics and infusion as well. Some of my UCM friends could expand on this, but the clinics, both the outpatient clinics and the inpatient floors are above, are sort of loosely organized around what kind of tumors are being, what kind of cancer is being treated, liquid tumors versus solid tumors. So that informed a lot of the organization of the building as we move up the floors. What we wanted to highlight on the second and third floors is this space that we call fusion space. So again, this is an academic medical center. There are very few offices in this building because the physicians, the researchers, they already have offices elsewhere on campus for the most part. So they need space when they are here. All the staff really need space when they're here for, you know, collaboration, downtime, meetings, heads down work, a variety of uses. So the second and third floors, which are the outpatient floors, and also the fourth and sixth floors, which are the inpatient floors, include this fusion space, which I think everyone's, you know, looking forward to, you know, having space like that in the building. Marco, if there was another comment there.
Yeah, just a comment is that this space was critical to us making sure that people didn't run back to their offices, and we wanted them to be available. And so the idea is that you could be a faculty member working on the inpatient floor, and then you've got some time before you do your outpatient clinic. Instead of going back to your office, you've got some space, and so the residents and fellows would be able to run into you. Nursing staff as well could be doing teaching at that time, et cetera. So we really wanted this to be a place to keep them in the building and focused on the patients. And then at each shift, it'll change, right? So they'll probably become more loungy in the evenings for the residents and fellows who might be doing their long stints and things. But we wanted to make sure that they didn't run off to other places on the campus. So keeping them engaged was critical.
And, you know, as we went through our costing of the project and had to learn, you know, how much space we could afford, this was a space that would have been maybe easy to cut out of the project, but it was held sacred, really, that we had to continue to accommodate this function of the building. That's really how important it's seen as. Just a couple of images of that space, what it's you know, meant to look and feel like, to really give a nice warm home for all of the users of the building. Another image of the same space. So as we move up to the fourth and sixth floors, these are the inpatient floors. The typical floor plate accommodates 48 beds, organized into 3 pods of 16 beds each, and that's sort of in sync with the nursing operations at UCM. On the south end, or the bottom end of the plan on the fourth floor, those 16 beds are ICU level of care. The rest of the beds are a med-surg level of care. This is a good floor, too, to illustrate that the flexibility that we talked about. In a lot of ways, this building is almost like a tenant office building, in that the core of the building is really where everything occurs. All of the elevators, the stairs, and the mechanical shafts and risers all happen in a tight core. A lot of hospital buildings, you might see a mechanical shaft that's floating out inside one of those pods, for example. We really worked hard to keep all that tight so that the flexibility that we talked about could be maintained, because we don't know what the future holds, especially on the shell space floors. We've test fit other kinds of space into the building. We've laid out ORs, for example. We've laid out some basic office space, lab space, some different things. So we're really focused on that element. So keeping that core tight like that was critical to us.
Yeah, we went to the expense of the entire building as I2 use group. So not being able to understand what the future might be for cancer care, we wanted, if the possibility that this might become all inpatient, we needed to provide for that. So all of these pods could be converted at any time and individually on each floor. So that's one of the things that we built into the building that added expense, but we think gives that 40-year type of flexibility.
Yeah, so our friends from AEI in the audience were critical to that element of the design too, thinking about the MEP infrastructure for future use of the building, the phase 1 building, but the vertical expansion as well. Structural engineers and vibration consultants helped us consider what the various criteria were for different uses in the building, or potential uses. So we tried to plan for that and accommodate for that as well as we went through our design. This is the last slide as part of the building design, just a typical inpatient floor. The reason to have this slide in there is simply to say that technology is a really big input to the design of this building. You see if we can achieve it, and our goal is to, and UCM's goal is to have a very smart patient room that not only can the patient control the environment in the room, but the technology in the room is linked to the patient medical record, to various other technology throughout the facility that's of importance to the patients and the faculty. So, with that, I think I will hand it off to Tom to talk about more of the construction.
Thanks, Todd. So, taking a big step back, we start realizing that the overall process is going to be about 6 to 7 years for us to be partners on this specific project, which is a pretty long time. As we were putting together the slide deck, I came to realize that we've been working for 2.5 years together already. So it's amazing how in our industry, how time really flies. So to give you some relevant information though, we started prototyping the building in October of 2021, and the visioning phase went to about February of 22. The design process has been going on since March of 22 and finished around a couple months ago. We had this unique optimization phase, which we'll dive into a little bit later. That was a 4-month look at the project that was actually a really critical thing for us on this job. We also pulled for some make-ready work on the project. We put a large storm trap in a tunnel in Maryland Avenue, which had a lengthy vacation process that University of Chicago had to go through. And by doing that, that really allowed us to get that work out of the way so then we can plan the big job, which we started in about November, and it's going to be about 34-ish months. And obviously the most important date is Q2 of 2027, when occupancy and the first patient will be seen. As we go to the next slide, what I like to do is I like to kind of give everyone here some understanding as to where our mentality was when we started in October of 2021. We essentially were in the middle of the pandemic. Escalation was going crazy, supply chain was going crazy. There was a lot of risk out there that we were trying to understand, trying to plan for. Like with any other project, there's lots of other types of risks that you work around, but this was something that was out of our control. And on top of that, it was paramount for the project's success that we had a speed to market delivery method that was as fast as possible. Like, we need to get this building open. So when you kind of wrap that all together, a traditional delivery process of design, bid, build was just not going to fit the mold. So we kind of came together with this integrated pre-con schedule where the design team would issue key drawing packages and we would GMP those at certain times, which all happening while we're estimating the overall project. We thought this would drive the risk out of the project and allow us to open the job, actually complete the job about 8 months earlier than if we did a traditional process. And that was paramount for us for this project and for success, to really drive the risk out. So, and what was also really critical for us was at the very beginning of the project to essentially bake the cake. Know during SD what the building was going to look like and what it was going to cost. So then when we're doing each of these GMPs, we essentially took a slice of the cake and we would analyze, all right, did we take too big of a piece? Was there a risk item that came up that we didn't foresee? What happened with that? Do we need to project it out further? Did we include too much scope? And conversely, if we took too small of a slice, well, okay, Did we do better than we planned? Is there something we can reinvest and plan in the project? And we've been doing this together for the last, year and a half, really evaluating that budget, keeping the overall goal in mind at the end while we're doing these interim checkpoints. And right now we're in the middle of the final GMP of the project, the process has worked really well. It's been a huge benefit for us. The other, did you have something? No. Oh, sorry.
Just agree.
The other piece that you notice on this wonderful color diagram is the system optimization phase of the project. Want to go to the next phase, next slide. So, and Marco, I think there's some words you'd like to speak to this.
Oh, why don't you go ahead? And then
Okay.
I'll join.
So essentially with system optimization, the reason why I think this was so critical for us was because we were going down a path, and the building was being looked at from an aspirational standpoint. What not so much the bricks and mortar, but what could it be? What does it mean to the campus? I mean, if you've been down to Hyde Park, there's not tons of land all over the place for another project to be built. So University of Chicago is investing a huge capital investment in this area, and it's got to hit on point. So we were going through a series of designs and reviewing where the project was at. And at one point, UCM said, you know what, let's pause, let's look at a bunch of options, because we're dealing with a lot of escalation risk right now. And we don't want our money just to go into solving escalation. We want to make sure that how we're investing our capital is for the building that we really want at the end of the day, that has the flexibility that's needed. Like Todd mentioned before, hopefully in some time in the future, it's not a cancer center anymore. Hopefully it's something completely different, and it has nothing to do with that. So it's got to have the flexibility for future. We also put shell space in it for flexibility for sooner, and then also the ability for it to grow vertically. So we went through, I must have done, not me personally, but Turner must have done about 60 or 70 cost models. We probably reevaluated about 3 different building types, small, medium, large. And at the end of it, we were able to, I think, produce a building that really hit on home with what UCM was looking for, back on budget, that accounted for a lot of the risks that we were trying to avoid.
Yeah, so you hear Tom talk about it, it sounds so clinical, So you can imagine we had a new president, and all of a sudden, we're into 2021, and now we end up with 15% inflation, and so he has to go back to the board and say, the building I said was going to cost X is now 15% more. Not something you want a new president to have to do, and so, as all presidents do, they turn around and ask the rest of us. So there were 64 different scenarios that we investigated throughout this. And throughout this time, as we were working through all the numbers and divisions of how to do this, we had to keep our focus on the final target, and that was, how do we build enough to generate the revenue to pay for the building now, leave enough space so that we could reduce some of the costs? So how much shell space should we build so that you could react immediately when things are better, but also maintain our costs? And then we also had to provide for long-term growth. So what we came up with was basically a 30% shell space in the building, and the opportunity to increase 3 floors additionally on top of the building. And so, but getting to that took a lot of time and effort, and we maintained the flexibility that we can put research labs, we can put ORs, inpatient, outpatient, anything we need on those floors. And that's why right now we're in the journey to 2027 when we open. We hope at that time we'll know more about what else we need in the building. And quite honestly, some of the cancer cures that they're looking at in our research facilities are quite exciting, and already they're basically telling us some of the changes they're going to want for us to accommodate. But again, that was the balance we came to. It wasn't easy or fun, but we're here.
But I think I would do it again. Yeah, actually. I mean, it's the rapid fire planning where we were coming up with a new, block and stack diagram like every 2 weeks-ish for a while. and Turner would, have a short while to put a cost to that, and we'd all go back and we'd iterate. But I think it was worth it in the end.
Yeah, there's not a lot of projects of this size where, there's a time of reflection and analyzing again to make sure that we're going down the right path. That doesn't happen on every project. So I think, personally, I think we all agree it was a pivotal point for the project, and it was time well spent. All right. So for overall construction schedule, I mentioned before, we're 34-ish months to complete the project. Right now, we're in foundations for the project. One of our key items together is making sure, to get a little technical here, get through our BIM coordination. We feel that's paramount for the project. The bar on the slide is incorrect. We're looking for BIM to be done before steel, and that's actually a project tenant that we put together as a team, saying that, in order to make sure that we are creating speed in the market, doing as much as we can on paper before it hits the field is paramount. We have about a year for superstructure, a year for envelope. You can see the rest of it. So we're also right now really focusing on our commissioning plan, because that's going to be a big deal for the project. The job actually lands very well with seasonal loading for the project, so we feel very, very good about the September substantial completion date in relation to all the items for the project in totality. Let's go next slide. Yeah, so talk a little bit about project logistics. Next. So here, it's also amazing what we can do nowadays with VDC and making logistics plans, how they look now compared to what they looked like 10 years ago. So we use these to communicate with UChicago, and they can use them to communicate with their leadership as well. So, but on our project, we're in a type urban site. If you've been down to Hyde Park, you understand what an active campus it is. Some of the pressure points at the top is the ED. We had to make sure we keep that free and clear for people to use that. That was one of the key reasons why we had the infrastructure go so early as we did. So we didn't have that on top of the big project build affecting the ED. It's actually turned around. So the north is the UC South steam plant and also the daycare. There's some logistical items we had to obviously work around with that. On the east is the KCBD, which is a lab building of vivariums across the street. Vibration monitoring and control is of the utmost importance. Also, there's intakes, air intakes that are, that's right where essentially all our trucks go into the site. So we have to be cognizant of that. And then at the south is the CCD, which is the main hospital for the campus. So again, if you're on any active hospital campus, you know how busy it is with foot traffic and people, and how we need to make sure that we keep the construction in our area and that it looks professional on the outside. That is very paramount. The next slide just kind of shows how crowded it's going to be. Minimal laydown area. We have 2 cranes for the steel erection, about 5,000 tons. From a mass excavation standpoint, we are dealing with about 200 trucks a day that we can't stage on campus. That's not safe, so we have to call them in. That's on days with peak loading, but that's a lot of trucks, obviously. So you can see it's a very, very tight, condensed site that we're actively managing. And then the last slide, next slide, sorry. So this is already behind. This was taken last Friday. You can see where we're at right now with the dig. Now, if you look at the site, we have a lot of stone down. we put earth retention in for our core, and we're going to start concrete soon. So it's amazing how in only 4 months, how much you can get accomplished. So, and if it took us 2.5 years to get here in pre-con, I imagine we're going to be 2.5 years from now with the building. So it's going to be pretty amazing.
You forgot one key neighbor. Just for good measure, we thought we'd also build right next to a daycare center.
Great. So as I talked about before, impacts, and this project is really what we want to do to elevate the level of cancer care. And as I mentioned before, academics, research, and clinical all working together. And some of our leaders have really stepped up to the plate. And that's why one of the things that they've kept and made important to us is the timing. So getting this done as soon as possible is very critical because we want to bring that care to our patients and family members. And then, as usual, we have a strong commitment to our MWB partners, as you can see also from our previous slide in terms of those that are on the team. And that commitment is very much core to us and something we've been working on for many, many years and are proud of. And then the community involvement, you know, we had dozens upon dozens of meetings, and Kim Ames, who's here in the audience, is one of the people who sat through every single one of those and cataloged everything that was said on the project. And I have to say, they moved us. And one of the things that's striking, when Todd talked about the fact that the first floor is the community center and our main lobby, along with its interconnection to the second floor, if you've ever been to our Center for Care and Discovery, the lobby is actually on the 7th floor. It follows the hotels in Chicago where you have a motor lobby on the first floor, and then you go to the real lobby up on an elevated floor. But we wanted it to be on the first floor because the community basically said, we walk to your buildings and then it says, don't walk in here. It says, stay out, right? And so that's why we created all that glass and that opening on the first floor to make sure that this building felt inviting, because we are building it not for ourselves, we're building it for our community and our patients and their families. So that commitment was strong, and I think it was reflected in the design.
The last slide is just, is I think we've hopefully illustrated to everybody how we feel like we're succeeding on this project. You know, our teamwork, our collaboration, and our sense of the importance of this project that we mentioned earlier. So that is it. Questions from anybody? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question?
Go ahead.
No.
Microphone's
Yeah.
on its way.
Would you like to yell?
Fred, I'm coming.
Yeah, so that was actually a key discussion point that we had very early on in the project, what would be the right way to do that. So during the system optimization phase, we actually brought in some resources that we had internally to help support the design team with engineering functions and to talk about all those different variations of the building. It wasn't until when DD was complete that we decided to go through a formal RFP process with design assist subcontractors. We felt at that time and how much pre-construction we still had left, we could bring on key partners with pretty good developed drawings that can help us then shape and finalize the rest of the design, and also give us a checkpoint as to where we were going and just kind of how things look from the design development. And we have a great partner in AEI, but it was more of is there any other type of items they can maybe bring to the table with the supply chain challenges and the market presence that we were seeing to help maybe shape some of the drawings and help us with some cost certainty. Mm-hmm. Floor-to-floor heights in this building, they vary.
At the first couple of floors, they're actually in the 20 to 22 foot range, but that's primarily because we were linking over to the parking garage and some of those horizontal linkages that we wanted to make. And then we had to, at the 5th floor, we have a bridge over to the Center for Care of Discovery, so that's set another parameter up there, and we kind of divided in the middle. We ended up with a 16 foot floor-to-floor height on our upper floors, and we're anywhere from 18 to 22, but from 5th floor down. So, but and getting a building to not look like a funny layer cake with all those disparate floor heights was a little bit of a challenge for the designers, but I think they've done it.
Can we get a round of applause? Thank you so much for sharing the story. It's an incredible project, and we look forward to it being completed. Thank you. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
I want to thank our sponsors again, and the Union League Club, and the staff here as well. For those of you who would like to become a member, we're always looking for members, please. You're always welcome. There's a QR code on some of the signage that you may be able to look at, and we look forward to seeing everybody at our next events. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Incredible.
You too.
What was that?
Appreciate that.